Welcome into Four Verticals Podcast, episode 138, here for this Thursday, October 23rd, 2025. And no, we're not talking about the NBA, FBI, gambling stuff. Even though as funny as it is, we are not stepping on the NBA's foot. We're not doing that. We'll let the other bigger network shows cover that. We here covering college football today and Bucs versus Saints, game one. Prediction later on, and of course we have the Tuesday poll late again this week. Last show ran a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be, so I have time to get to the Tuesday poll, but we're doing it today. So if you're new here, first of all, welcome in. Let me scoot my chair over just a bit closer to the camera here on YouTube. If you're new here, welcome in. Make sure you subscribe if you're new here to the YouTube channel, podcast feed. Follow me on X, Twitter to get more information over there. We have a lot of fun over there. But big show today. Of course, we have upset alerts as usual. The Tuesday poll on a Thursday. We have Bucs Saints game one predictions. So a lot of things to cover today, and got a very, very, very elevated upset alert segment. It feels like it's been the case for this year and last year as well. So how about that? Let me see here, check my notes, and we will get started. Make sure there's no errors. Okay. Upset alerts, week 9. Which teams could be in danger of losing this weekend? A lot of sort of like a couple weeks ago, I think it was week 2, I believe, or week 2, week 3. We had a lot of folks saying, "Oh man, it's a quiet week in college football, not a lot of big games." Kind of getting that same feel, and it makes me wonder if we are going to get just a complete chaos Saturday, like a bunch of teams losing that you didn't think were going to lose, but ended up losing. I think that could be on the tap today. Or not today, well, Saturday. So first game up, Syracuse at Georgia Tech. This one I'm concerned about. Of course, Georgia Tech still undefeated. I believe they are in the top 10 in the AP and the coaches poll, I believe, or they're getting close. Let me see. Yeah, they're top 10-ish in both polls, I believe. So still undefeated, top 10 in all the polls. A lot of folks are kind of talking about them. At least we're talking about them. I don't think a lot of the casuals aren't, but they haven't lost yet, and they may not lose a game. At least they won't be a dog in the game probably until the Georgia game on a neutral site in Atlanta, which is still crazy to me. But up until then, they could lose a game. Much like with Florida State, much like with Miami, these big teams, especially teams that are usually good or in the top 10 in the ACC. There's always this sort of stigma towards the other lower class teams like, NC State, Wake Forest, Syracuse, toward teams like, Miami, Florida State, Clemson in the past, in the past and currently. And even a team like Georgia Tech, we saw with Wake Forest where it's like, we're playing who? Wake Forest? I don't care about them. You should be worried if you're a Georgia Tech fan. You should be careful if you're a Georgia Tech because we saw it with Florida State losing to Pitt and Miami losing to Louisville. They'll be out there totally disrespecting those sort of lower tier middle of ACC teams. And they can still get you, okay? Like the separation from Georgia Tech to like a Syracuse or an NC State, it's not that big. Now there's some parts of the team where they're better than others, but from overall talent perspective, there's not much of a gap. It's very small, very micro gap. So look, I am fully aware that the folks in Atlanta, Brent King Company, I'm sure they're aware of what's happened with Florida State and Clemson and Miami over the past couple of weeks. I think they'll be okay, but I am watching this with interest. So this is in the yellow category. And yes, I'm aware too that, Syracuse, Evangeli being out, obviously that profile of that team is a little bit different, but I'm still concerned here. Like this is not a game where if I'm Georgia Tech or a Georgia Tech fan, I'm not sitting here very comfortable thinking they're going to win this game by like 21 plus. I believe the line, according to FanDuel, as I look at this, let's see here, Georgia Tech, it's 16.5. That is pretty significant too. So that's a big line, and I'm concerned about it. So, if I were betting, I don't, but you can if you want to. If I were betting this game with actual money, I'll probably take Syracuse in the points there. That's a little bit too big of a number there, even for ACC standards. So that one is in the yellow category. This one, big game of the G5. It's really weird that everyone's focused on this Vanderbilt, Missouri game, and you should. but I don't know if that's the biggest game in Tennessee, in the state of Tennessee. South Florida plays Memphis, and these two teams at one point were, well, at least Memphis was undefeated. They lost last week to UAB, but they're both still fairly decent teams in the G5, at least teams that are still battling, if you will, to get that G5 spot in the playoffs, if it's available to them. So this is a big game for both teams to stay alive in that. Now, of course, in the American, you still have Nathan Hughes still out there undefeated. I believe they're off this week, or they were off last week. So they're still swimming out there, not literally, but out there sort of in the same pond, but they're still perfect, whereas South Florida and Memphis both have losses. I believe, according to FanDuel, I believe Memphis is favorite in this game, or South Florida is, yeah, not Memphis. So they're the ranked team. They're going on the road to a team that is in wounded tiger mode, if you will, for Memphis after losing last week. I'm concerned about this for South Florida. I think Memphis, Ryan Silverfield, sort of a name that's cooled off a little bit for some of these like other jobs that have opened. Like Virginia Tech is one that his name has been brought up for. I think Arkansas, he's been brought up for that job. Oklahoma State. This is one of those games, and I mentioned this back a couple of weeks ago with the Arkansas job, ironically, that I feel like games like that, for some of these lower tier G5 coaches that are up for big jobs, like big P2 jobs, that they use these big games in the G5 or against other bigger teams as sort of like games to signal to possible prospective fan bases saying, hey, watch us in this game. This to me could be for actually both of these coaches, really. I mean, Alex Glesh and Ryan Silverfield. But because Silverfield and his team losing to UAB last week, they're back at home, backs against the wall. They feel threatened. You have South Florida coming in, who looks like a total machine. Besides that Miami game, I am really concerned here about South Florida. Just to be honest with you, I'm really concerned. Not to mention, too, you're hearing more and more stuff about Alex Glesh, too, now, about him being positioned for other jobs and, particularly the Southeastern region. But, because it's the whole dynamic stuff here, Memphis, again, they're sort of desperate, needing a huge one to stay alive. They're about, a 5.5 point dog, according to FanDuel. So I do believe that South Florida is in trouble here. This one's in the red category. The line's not big, but just in terms of the ranked team losing them, yeah, I can totally see it. And this next one, actually, these next two here are very weird in terms of which team is favored, but it kind of makes sense if you understand power rating. So this first one, pretty easy. BYU at Iowa State. BYU is undefeated, I believe, in the AP and the coaches poll. They're in the top 10, top 15 range. So they're a highly ranked team going on the road to an Iowa State team that has lost 2 in a row, a ton of injuries. Who do you think is favored? Who do you believe is favored? Who do you think it is? Is it BYU by 10.5, 15.5, billion and a half? No. Iowa State's favored. Your audio didn't cut out. I'm just giving you time to process that. Probably should repeat it. Iowa State, according to the betting sites, according to FanDuel, sites like that, who again is not a sponsor of the show, we just use them for research purposes. Iowa State is a favorite over a borderline top 10 BYU team, according to the rankings. Yes, that's a real thing. Let me explain. In the world of power ratings, if you follow power ratings, all it is just a list of teams who would be favored over who on a neutral field. Like, for example, if you watch Josh Page's show, and he puts out his power ratings, which are not rankings, by the way. Again, it's just a list of teams that show who would be favored over who, and a list of 25 teams on a neutral field, right? So if you list 25 teams and you just, which teams would be ordered, based on who would be favored over who. So that's how power ratings work. So if you follow power ratings, you know that BYU is nowhere near in a list of 20 or 25 teams. They will not be near that because of certain stuff like talent level. Their talent profile isn't the best. They played a lot of close games. They've almost lost a few games. For example, last week, they beat Utah, who was a top 25 team in the rankings. The power rating world, or at least in power rating world, folks who do that and follow betting and stuff closely, you wouldn't have BYU power rated in the top 25. You just wouldn't, because it didn't prove you anything. They didn't really prove you anything. And even looking at their whole sample size, they have not proved to be a team that would be deserving to be favored over teams like, an Alabama or a Georgia Tech or a Texas Tech. They won't be favored over them. And they shouldn't be favored over them. because I've seen BYU play a lot. I know they are a very wobbly team. They're very fortunate to be undefeated right now. I'll just say that they're very fortunate. So to people who still don't understand, well, how is the Iowa State favorite of BYU? It just is what it is. Power ratings. Look at the total body of work. Now, grant you, Iowa State injuries and stuff, that's a concern, not to mention the way their resume has worked out. It's kind of bland, but even still, it's on the road. And I don't think this line's wrong at all. And this one is obviously in the red category. I actually think Iowa State's going to win this game. Somehow, some way, I think they're going to win this game. I don't know how. That's just college football. I think a lot of folks who, like me, Josh Pate, Bud Elliott over on Cover 3, sort of think of us as like haters of BYU. We don't hate BYU. No. I mean, I think Klein Sitake has done a fantastic job over there in Proville. It was just with BYU, again, I just don't see him as a real threat to go to the college football playoff. I don't. And that's not me being mean. That's just me being realistic and sort of conservative in my thinking towards them based on what I've seen their body of work and how I think this team just stacks up in terms of talent. They're just not that good. Again, just look at all of their games. They've had so many close games. The West Virginia game, the Colorado game last week. All of their games are like they're winning these games by like 2 points, 3 points, or whatever. So they're not at least a team that should be profiling as a borderline top 10 team, at least in my opinion. So that's why I'm thinking you'll see this in the Tuesday poll. We just now have BYU ranked, but they're in the 20s. We'll let you know more of that in a little bit. So yes, from a power rating standpoint, if you understand power ratings, Iowa State being favored here makes total sense. It just makes sense. Okay, I don't know what else to say. I mean, unless you don't understand how the calculators work and how you actually dissect these teams from a standpoint of just power ratings, this makes sense. So BYU is a dog on the road, even though they're a borderline top 10 team to an unranked team. Totally makes sense to me. I understand it, and I respect it. That's why I think Iowa State's going to win the game outright, somehow, some way. Not to mention they're desperate, too, for a big win. You're also hearing a lot about Matt Campbell and his future there. Not because he's getting fired, it's just that he might be on the move, potentially. I think those players are going to play hard for him. We're going to play hard for him. I think there is going to be a lot of pride for that program. So I think they'll win that game. Somehow, some way, I think they'll win. And unfortunately, the BYU magic carpet ride will come to an end. At least that's what I'm thinking. I could be totally wrong, and they could win that game outright and prove us wrong again. But still, in the world of power ratings, let's just say BYU were to win this game. I doubt anyone's list would look any different. Probably stay the same. If anything, they may enter in like at the bottom, but not really. Like they're not going to shoot up to the top 10 in power ratings. Well, no, that's not going to happen. That's not how it works. or at least that's not how it's been explained to me. That's not how it works. So, to BYU fans, we're not haters. We're just trying to be realistic and somewhat looking at it through a different lens. Okay, you're winning games, you get that, but you're not doing it in terms of if you're looking at it from a power rating standpoint. You're not doing it to a point where it didn't impress the calculators and the computers. Okay, that's just how it is. I'm not a computer. So if I'm gonna get mad at anyone, go get mad at all these computers and calculators for putting you guys in their listing of teams. So it's not our fault. It's not humans' faults. It's their faults, the computers or whoever those items, I guess. Next up, similar situation. Illinois traveling to Washington. Illinois is a ranked team according to the AP and the coaches poll. Again, similar to BYU at Iowa State. Who do you think is favored? It's not Illinois. I'll tell you that. It's Washington. Makes sense to me. Why? Dynamics. Illinois has to go on the road to travel to Seattle. Now you can say, you can make the argument saying, well, Ohio State, did the same thing and they won. Well, Illinois is not Ohio State, and Illinois is a team that a bit shaky. I think they're dealing with injuries too. Whereas Washington, they're at home. They've looked, they just got embarrassed on the road at Michigan, and it looked bad. I watched a little bit of that game, so they're desperate. Okay, they're in wounded Husky mode. I mean, just again with Illinois having to travel and whatnot. I just wonder if a lot of those folks and all those players don't understand what they're walking into in terms of from an atmosphere standpoint at a Husky Stadium. Because look, I haven't been there before, but I can tell you from what I've seen from footage-wise and, following a lot of, or at least hearing from folks who have been there, it's a good environment, man. You have Dubs, the little Husky that's there on the sidelines, you have the fans, and just the scenery too is amazing. But that stadium's loud, man. Even on, go back to a couple years ago during the old Pac-12 with those Oregon-Washington games, just insane atmosphere, just insane. So Washington, again, win in Husky mode. They're desperate. Illinois is having to travel across the country. I know a lot of folks complain about it. They say, oh, travel for college people, not a big problem. College basketball teams do it all the time. This isn't college basketball. A lot of these kids aren't used to traveling this far and, in terms of this situation. Now, granted, when you get to the pro level, it's a little bit different, okay? That's where it sort of starts to go away. But I still think it's a problem. So Washington being the favorite here, travel dynamics. Washington, again, a team that's in desperation mode. It's at home. Totally makes sense to me. Much like Iowa State BYU, I am taking the home team to win if I were actually picking this game. So I'm taking Washington to win. I think them being favored makes sense to me. So I feel very confident in that. So that one, those two in the red categories, I do believe the ranked teams in those matchups is going to lose. More here. Talked about this one on Tuesday. Bama at South Carolina. Cocktober. Is it back? Is it dead? Like I said on Tuesday, I think there is a chance that while Cocktober may have died, it's not, nothing says it can't be a zombie, right? The hand comes out of the grave, claws up on the grass. There it is. It's back. Somehow, some way. May not be technically alive, but it's a zombie. Is Cocktober going to be a zombie? Is it just, maybe a leak or a week or so delayed? Could, right? I understand why Bama's favored by where they are. I picked Bama to win. I believe that I picked them to cover. I don't remember. I think I may have picked South Carolina to cover. I think I did pick South Carolina to cover, but I just have a sneaking suspicion that South Carolina somehow, some way, is going to find a way to keep this game close. I'm not saying they're going to ruin the game. I don't think they're going to, but it's Cocktober. There's no reason it should be over by now. I grant you, if all of the stuff going on with South Carolina, with people hating the coordinator Shula and the offense is looking bad, even though Sellers is actually playing pretty well, given all things considered. I just wonder, again, with Bama on the road, are there problems fixed? Because again, I said this on Tuesday. Even though Bama has won all their games after the Florida State game, including the games on the road, those games on the road were not very clean. Like the Georgia game, close win. Missouri, barely escaping that with a win. Even some of the games at home have been somewhat competitive games. So I don't know if I fully trust Bama yet on the road. I trust them at home, but on the road, no. I do not trust them at least fully yet. So I'm picking this game to be in the yellow category. I'm kind of concerned here a little bit. I'm somewhat concerned. So this is in the yellow category. This may not make sense to you, but yeah, I am a little bit concerned here. This next one, no real concern here, but more of a, I guess I'll just go and talk about it. So it's Oklahoma State at Texas Tech. I guarantee you barely anyone knows what the spread is here, the spread of the game, like what the number is on the game. Obviously, Tech's favored, but by how much? Take a guess here. Is it, Tech minus 15, minus 11, minus 20? Well, if you haven't seen it yet, the number is Texas Tech, as of right now, according to FanDuel, as we're recording this, minus 37.5. Your audio didn't cut out on Spotify, but I almost threw up there just looking at the spread. Saw it earlier today. I'm like just gross. Very rare to see a Big 12 game. I just can't believe it. This is so rare. So this is crazy. So it's like a Big 12 game with a spread almost 40, minus 40. Like, this is not an error. This is what FanDuel has on their site right now. You can go in there right now. I guarantee you other sites have this too. I don't know what to say. I mean, look, I get it. Oklahoma State's uniquely bad. They're the worst team in the conference, but I just cannot fathom it. I cannot fathom it being this bad. Like, I just can't. Like, this is absolutely insane. So, I mean, look, again, I think Texas Tech, it's a rebound spot. And yes, I've also am aware of the whole tortilla thing of them banning the throwing the tortillas. Stupid. Okay, stupid. Much like how a lot of these folks are taking away rivalry names. Just no, we cannot do that. I would not allow that. And hopefully, folks, including the future commissioner Josh Pate, will fix that for us. But even with the added, intensity with the tortillas being banned, I think Texas Tech should take care of business here. Now, will they cover this almost 40.5 spread? I don't know, man. this is, again, a huge number. Again, it's not an FCS team. It's Oklahoma State now. Grant, you mean, look, you can read into this all you want of, I guess the folks in Vegas think this is a borderline FCS G5 team, but I don't know, man. That is a very significant number, all things considered here. So that is when I saw that this morning, I'm like very shocked to actually see that. So that is it's in the green category, but man, I don't know if Texas Tech can even cover that. Like that's a huge number. So I could be wrong. They could score 50 points plus, but again, look at that line. Again, if you haven't gone to FanDuel yet, like that is insane to me. 37.5, almost 40 points. That just boggles the mind. That just really, really does. So, never thought I would ever see a Big 12 spread. And I mean, look, it's America's conference, the Big 12. My goodness, 37.5 in America's football conference? No. That can't be right, but it is right, unfortunately. Speaking of America's football conference, we'll stay in the great Big 12 here. Baylor at Cincinnati, interesting game here. So the line on this game is Cincinnati barely favored at home. I know, again, doesn't make a lot of sense. How can it be? A ranked team barely favored over an unranked team? Again, outside of that Oklahoma State Texas Tech game, this is still America's college football conference. So besides the teams that are actually dead, like Oklahoma State being a literal zombie or a corpse, Baylor is still a team that's a decent team. They have a good offense. Yes, their defense absolutely sucks. That's why this number is like 67.5, the over-under. I think this will be a competitive game. Obviously, I believe I have this in the code red, I believe. It's in the red category. Yeah, it's in the code red category. So, obviously, the ranked team here could lose. I think Baylor and Dave Aranda are due for a huge game in terms of pulling off a huge upset. I think they're due for it. I think it's a program that is sort of desperate for a big win. You had opportunities early in the year. I guess you did beat you did beat SMU, but you didn't beat Auburn. It's not one of those opportunities, man. You don't get them very often, but here it is, a ranked team, and they're giving you 3.5 points. So that one's in the red category. This one, kind of shocking number here. So Texas, after coming off of that weird, odd, very boring, not boring, but just not a very pleasing game to watch against Kentucky. They go back on the road, second week in a row, to face Mississippi State. Now, again, much like the Washington, Illinois, and BYU, Iowa State games, what do you think the spread is here? What do you think it is? Like Texas Tech or Texas minus 13.5, 20.5? They're only favored by barely a touchdown. 7.5. It's on the road. This was in the red category. I'm kind of concerned here. And the reason why is because, again, second leg of a back-to-back road game here. Road stretch. You're on the road again. You just got done playing a very physical game in Lexington against Kentucky, and they're sort of quasi Super Bowl. Now you go to another team Super Bowl and Mississippi State, and a Mississippi State team who has yet to win an SEC game. So you just barely beat Florida, or almost beat Florida last week. They almost beat Tennessee a few weeks ago, and they just haven't won an SEC game yet this year, and they're desperate for one. And you happen to be next. I think. I don't think Mississippi State will beat you. I don't think so. But I can say that I am very confident this will be a very competitive game. I know it doesn't make any sense to you just looking at the number, the school names here. It's like, oh yeah, Texas should take care of Mississippi State. No, they're not going to. I think this will be a very competitive game. Probably a tight game too. Probably similar to that, not like actually similar, but similar in terms of competitiveness to that Kentucky game. I think this profile is very similar. So if I'm betting on paper or not, well, I bet I do. Well, I don't bet. I just look at the numbers. But if I were actually betting, I would pick Mississippi State plus the points here. I think that's a little bit too much for me, especially being on the road in a team in Mississippi State that is very desperate for a huge win. And the SEC, granted, they got one in non-con, but yeah, they are very desperate there for a win. No, we're not talking about Wisconsin, Oregon, even though that is this one in Stanford and Miami, suspiciously huge numbers again. Like these two in the Oklahoma State Texas Tech game. How about that? Like 30.5 for Miami and Stanford. I don't know about that. Those all three of them. Excuse me, burping there. Happens once in a while if you're new here. We sometimes burp in the middle of talking there. Happens, especially if I have a lot of water to drink. But back to what I was saying, yeah. Both of these lines here, for all three of these lines, this Oregon game against Wisconsin, Stanford, Miami, and Oklahoma State, Texas Tech. All of those games, I think, combined are almost 100 points for all the favorites here. Again, those are pretty significant numbers. So how about that? But no, we're not touching any of those. Let's see here. Next on the list. What is it? Yeah, okay, yeah. So Michigan State, Michigan. So this is a road game. I believe this is on NBC, I believe. So it'll be Todd Blackledge, no Eagle. Calling this game is the Big Ted game on NBC, nightly game. So rivalry game, Pop Bunyan's trophy on the line here. The line is only 14.5, which is interesting considering how bad Michigan State's defense is. This one's in the yellow category. I'm a little bit concerned here. I mean, look, it's a rivalry game. Again, just talked about it. Michigan State defensively, but it's still Jonathan Smith, and I still have faith in him, and I still have faith in that offense of Aiden Childs, even though he's been up and down again this year. The Whoopsie Daisy King again. But again, look, as much as I understand folks in East Lansing are not happy with Jonathan Smith right now, especially with the defense, I kind of wonder if this is one of those games where if you're like a Michigan fan or just a fan watching this game, just from far away, you're probably thinking to yourself, yeah, Michigan should take care of Michigan State. Did you know that? Do you even consider this much of a rivalry anymore? I kind of do. I think Michigan State can compete. So that's why we're watching it. Again, it's on the road, home environment. Michigan State sort of, kind of due for a big performance here, or at least not, if not, winning the game, just trying to be competitive with Michigan State, I think would do wonders for them. So, or being competitive in Michigan, if you're a Michigan State fan or anyone on that staff there. So, or just outright winning the game. So, this one's in the yellow category, I believe. I put it in the yellow category. Yeah, so it's in the yellow category. Watching it, again, rivalry game, always got to be careful with those. And that's, again, even for a rivalry game, it's kind of a big number there. This next one, another rivalry game. Excuse me. Tennessee playing Kentucky on the road. What do you think the number is? Kentucky, hosting this game. What do you think the number is? Is it Kentucky or Tennessee minus, 10.5, 11.5, 20.5? Again, a very interesting number here. It's only 8.5. Very, very, very interesting. Again, for a lot of folks who watched that Texas game, you just saw Kentucky be competitive with Texas taking overtime. Now they host Tennessee, another opportunity to get a huge win for Mark Stoops this year. It's a rivalry game, again, much like the Michigan State game. I'm watching this game very closely. Again, it's a rivalry game. The ranked teams on the road. I believe it's a back-to-back road spot. Doesn't always bode well for those in those situations. Again, you have to think of these in a lot of these games. If you're picking the upset, think about the travel dynamics. Again, talked about this with the Washington game. Talked about it with the Mississippi State game. Talked about it with this game. Again, the dynamics here play a big part here. The travel, where you're on your schedule, who you just play, injuries and stuff, all that has to be taken into consideration here. And I think it should be taken into consideration here for this game. So it's in the yellow category. I think the upset could potentially happen. We're watching this game. I know Kentucky offensively is nothing special, but the new quarterback's in. Their defense played well last week. I think they could do the same thing this week. Tennessee again, second game in a row on the road. Don't feel good about it. If I'm a Tennessee fan, I'm just telling you. If I were a Tennessee fan looking at this game, even though the number is still 8.5, I'm still nervous. So this one we're watching very closely. And lastly, to wrap up this huge long segment, almost 30 minutes, Houston going on the road to Arizona State. The number 7.5. We're watching this one, and in fact, I believe is this a red category game too? Yeah, it's in the red category, or it's in the yellow actually. I know it has nothing to do with the colors either. It just happens to work out that way. Do people realize that Houston, if they win this game, they'll be 7-1 and well in the mix in the Big 12 championship race? They are, yeah. So believe it or not, this is actually a big game for that league in terms of league standings and, who will be going to Dallas probably to face Texas Tech. So it's kind of a big game here for Houston and Arizona State to keep themselves alive in the Big 12 here. And look at Willie Fritz, man. They're eligible this year. A lot of folks were questioning about, the fact that they're bringing in a whole new, a lot of portal players, a lot of new talent. They're proving folks wrong. Wrong. Now, granted, a lot of their games have been fairly close, but still, that's pretty impressive to do what they're doing, given what they had coming in, to now actually be in position to potentially, put yourself in the conference championship race before Halloween. Like that's pretty good if you're a Houston fan. And if you're Arizona State, again, look at the dynamics here. Who'd you just play? Texas Tech. You're gonna have to come back and play another pretty good to a decent opponent in Houston. So potential letdown spot could be on tap here. So the upset alert segment, much like it has been the past several weeks, very, very, very elevated. I am going to get some water real quick, and we shall continue on. We have the Tuesday poll, and we also have Bucs Saints. So it might be a bit of more of a shorter show today, which is understandable, I guess, given where we're at in the week, which is pretty typical. But yeah, I'm going to get some water real quick, and then we'll hop back into the show. So I'm mute on YouTube. Spotify, you should be able to hear me, I guess, drinking water, but on YouTube, I'm going to mute here. So I'm about to do that right now. Okay, we are back. And again, for those of you watching live, or those not watching live right now, but if you're watching on the replay, again, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Nothing happens to you if you do so. I don't, send you stuff in the mail or emails or call you or text you, nor do I knock on your door at your place of residence and saying, hey, go give me some money or something, or force you to sign up for something. Doesn't happen here. All this stuff available to you that we do on this show, or everything we do on this show, is available to you for nothing, free of charge. So if you subscribe, and if you're a new viewer to this channel, continue to do so. Helps us out and whatnot. And just a reminder too, we still have the survey that is still the pinned tweet on my X account, or the post on my X account, and it's still there. So let me see how many folks have if it's still there. Yeah, so it's still up there. Posted it a couple of days ago. There shouldn't be a age restriction, so that should be able to make it a little more easier. But yeah, that's on there. Again, it's nothing to do with the show, just something from my grad school. Just to be sure to fill it out. Helps us out. I don't have to, but helps me out for sure. But yeah, make sure to follow over there as well. And again, just a beautiful day here in Jacksonville, a Chamber of Commerce day. Yeah, just absolutely beautiful outside. So how about that? The Tuesday poll, we do this usually on Tuesdays, but because the show on Tuesday ran so much, we had so much to talk about, we had to move it. So now we're talking about it on Thursday. So as usual, we'll count down from 25 to number 1. I know on YouTube you can't see it, but I'll try to explain as much as I can. We used to post it on Twitter afterwards, but it just kind of got too confusing, so we're not doing that anymore. Maybe we will in the future, but at the moment we are doing it like this. Got my Google spreadsheet put up here. So we'll just kind of count down from 25 all the way down to 1. So from starting at 25 to 20 is number 25. Welcome into the poll, by the way, newcomers here. Undefeated Navy. Like I mentioned earlier, they're still swinging around as that G5 representative in the playoff. They're at 25, undefeated. I believe they still have Notre Dame on tap. They play them every single year as a rival. So they still have, they'll probably lose more games. They'll lose games eventually, but at the moment, you're 6-0 as a G5. That's pretty good, at least in my book. At 24, another newcomer, I believe for the first time ever. Minnesota at 5-2, beating Nebraska. You get to move in. I know they're not a very, they're not an easily, or I don't know, that's not even a word. They're not a very pleasing team to watch, but I have a lot of respect for PJ Fleck when they've done out there, and 5-2 this far in the season, very good for them. So they're at 24. 23, finally in our poll, I believe. I don't think they've been in there. If they have, it's only been once. I don't think they have at all. BYU, Brigham Young, finally in the poll at 23. Again, if this was power ratings, they would not be in. But as a poll, by beating Utah, yes, you do deserve to move in, but not by much. You were on the borderline for a while. Now you're finally in at 23. 22, Michigan. They didn't move that much. 21, another newcomer, Houston. Welcome in. They're at 6-1. As I just mentioned, they are in the mix for the Big 12 race. Then at number 20 is Tennessee at 5-2. Now, from 19 to, I guess we'll go 19 to, 16 here. We'll do these 4 teams. So at 19, Louisville, they're back in the rankings. 18, Cincinnati. Ironically, both of those are rivals, Cincinnati and Louisville. 17, Notre Dame. And then 16, Texas. Of course, Notre Dame and Texas are both 5-2 teams. Now, I will say the difference between me and our poll and the actual real polls, the coaches poll and the AP. We do not have Notre Dame all the way like they do. I think they have like borderline top 10. I do agree with Josh Pitt. That's more than like projecting what they'll be in the future. Notre Dame, because they believe, and a lot of other folks believe they'll be 10-2 and probably in the mix of the playoffs. Well, I somewhat agree they will probably be 10-2 or, 10-2. Though I will say I disagree with the playoff stuff. I think their strength of schedule, especially with their wins, is really you can poke holes in it pretty quickly and easily. But in terms of projecting them, I don't necessarily agree with that, which is why I have them down at 17. I think that's probably fair. But look, if they continue to win and look, if they do go 10-2, we'll have them where the APS had them all the whole time. But we're not doing that. We're not projecting. We're looking at them where they are right now. Same with Texas. A lot of folks are kind of projecting with them right now. We have them a little bit lower because they just haven't done as much to at least make us feel they should be a little bit higher. So they're at 16 for a reason. It's not that we're trying to be mean. It's just Notre Dame, again, I feel like a lot of folks are projecting them and at least thinking they will finish 10-2. It's not a guarantee, but it's close to one. But as of right now, you don't know that. It's not. No one's guaranteeing anything with Notre Dame. So that's why they're a little bit lower. Same with Texas in our poll. All right, more. Let's see here. 15-11 here. So number 15, Virginia. Didn't move them that much. They're still in the mix, too, for the ACC championship game. It's really weird, too, because all these teams in the ACC that are either ranked or still in the mix for the conference championship, they don't play each other. So that's very odd that all these teams are going to avoid each other. And, look, they have to choose 2 of them. So we'll see who ends up being. And, by the way, too, Virginia is still undefeated in the ACC. That one loss to NC State, not a conference game. Remember that. So that's when you're looking at your conference standings, you're looking at the schedules. That NC State Virginia game was not a conference game. Just a reminder there for folks who did not realize that. So they're still undefeated. Even though they've lost an ACC team, it just did not count that they were towards the standings. So they were at 15 in our poll. It seems reasonable, at least to me. Number 14, Texas Tech. Sort of like the AP poll and the coaches poll, dropping down just a little bit because their resume has has gone weaker a little bit, mainly too because other teams have moved up. Number 13, Missouri. They're 6-1. Oklahoma, 6-1. They're at number 12. Number 11, South Florida, still at 6-1. They're still a good team. That win over Florida. I know a lot of folks still kind of have this argument saying, well, I mean, they fired their coach. So shouldn't that win, devalue? Or shouldn't that situation with Billy Napier devalue that South Florida win? No, much like the Oregon win over Penn State. In fact, that's actually more impressive that you were able to actually, end that coach's tenure there, or at least be the reason why they've gone to where they are after being ranked in the top 15 in the AP and the coaches poll. So that win's actually still pretty impressive, though. It's still impressive. And look, I don't care how bad the teams are. If you beat an SEC team, if you're a G5 team, at least, and if you look at it from that prism, that's still a good win. I don't care how bad that team is. So they're at number 11 for us. All right, top 10 time. We'll just go straight from 10 to 1. Number 10, Vanderbilt, 6-1. 9, Ole Miss at 5-1. Miami, 5-1, then dropped that much. They're still a top 10 team. They're still pretty good. 7, Oregon at 6-1. Georgia Tech, undefeated, number 6. I think that's a little bit higher than the AP in the coaches poll. Georgia at number 5. Bama at number 4. A&M at 3. Indiana at number 2. And Ohio State number 1. Basically the same as the AP poll, which I agree with. So besides the bottom there, the top kind of in line with the AP and the coaches poll, although it's not that much of a difference, or it's not the same, but mostly is the same. So the Tuesday poll on a Thursday, no less. Again, I totally, just because the last time, last show was so long, how much stuff we had to cover, just didn't have enough time to actually get into that. So that's it for the college football talk. But we have, of course, one more thing we usually do on Thursdays, though we'll say next week we won't do it because it's the bye week. And that means we'll do a midseason checkup of Tampa. So, give some mid-season grades for them. So, with the bye week coming up. But, yeah, Bucs at Saints. Game one, remember in the NFL, in your division, you play every single team twice. So, every single time you play a division team, you play them twice on the road at home. So this is the road game for Tampa going to New Orleans on a short week, by the way, back-to-back road stretch here. So, of course, with the injuries and stuff, that's obviously a concern here. The line, by the way, on FanDuel is Tampa minus 4.5. And look, I will just say this as a Bucs fan. Look, as a Bucs fan, you hate New Orleans, you hate the Saints, you hate the colors, you hate the team. I don't necessarily hate the city necessarily, though. I would much prefer watch games of Tampa, but it's our big rival. For those of you who don't know that, it is our biggest rival in the division. I know everyone will say, yeah, Atlanta and Carolina, those are rivals too, and they are. But the biggest one, the one that hits us personally here for Bucs fans, is the game against the Saints. Always is. Look, they're terrible. Their head coach, Kellen Moore, he's probably going to be a one-term head coach, probably out after this year. That team is it's a bad team, okay? It's a bad team. Dreadful to watch. Every time I watch Spencer Rattler, the Rat, as people call him, probably one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. So if you're Tampa going to this game, even with all the injuries and stuff on offense, this should be a game where your defense may actually low-key kind of dominate the game. Because I don't think they have a good running game. They have Alvin Kamara, who is basically a living fossil at this point. He's no longer in his prime. He's probably, maybe a few years away from retiring. They don't have much of identity outside of him for the most part on offense. They don't have much of a passing game. So I do like Olave, the receiver, who is, again, another one of these Brian Hartline, Ohio State wide receivers that Tampa's facing this year. They've already faced two of them with JSN and Garrett Wilson. Now they have Olave. They face him every single year, but they also get Marvin Harrison later in the year of the Cardinals. So this is the third of the Ohio State receivers, and of course, obviously Tampa has the other one, and Ibuka, but obviously don't play themselves. But so the Olave, the receiver, I like him, but outside of him, no real identity on for the Saints offense. Just it's bad. Same with the defense too, no real identity. It just not a good defense. And there's a lot of times you watch, like for example, the Patriots when they went down there, just absolutely dominated them in the passing game. Just gross. Not to mention when they went to Seattle too. Just a bad team. Bad team defensively. No identity at all on offense. So if you're Tampa defensively, you're Todd Bowles. At least if your talent and what the players you have available to you right now, even with all the injuries, you should do pretty well. You should be able to create problems for them. And I think you should be able to do so. Now the offense, though, a little bit different here. Again, you still have Bucky out. Chris Godwin's still out. They'll probably be back after the bye week, which I was assuming that was the case anyway. Obviously, you lose Mike Evans for what seems like the rest of the year, so not expect them to show up anytime soon. Clearly, so they have to again rely on Ibuka, Tez Johnson, a lot of these younger receivers, which and also including veteran Sterling Shepard. And I know a lot of folks are kind of right now crapping on Tampa's receivers, the current guys they have available to them. Like, look, I get it. They're not the starters. It's not the group you wanted to have, but they're not bad. They're not terrible. They're actually pretty decent, I would say. Like, for a team in Tampa that has so many injuries, to actually have your wide receiver room performing up until Monday fairly decent, that's not a bad problem to have. Like, they actually have low-key decent receiver talent. So I'm not crapping on them. Even though they lost on Monday. Again, I think that's more of a indictment on the Lions' defensive line and Nate Hutchinson. That guy's just an absolute machine. Literally. I mean, like, even with the Bucs offensive line, too, I don't think it's bad either. I mean, you still have guys who are out, but you have guys returning back. You have Tristan Wirfs. And, again, up until Monday, I think a lot of the Bucs O-line and their shuffling they've had to do has actually worked. And I think it's more of an indictment on the Lions' defensive line being so good. So I think Tampa, at least if they're O-line, the receivers, I think they should be able to get back on rhythm. Now, I will say, though, the fact that it is a shortened week, back-to-back road stretch, does it concern me? Yeah, it does a little bit. Not to mention, too, it's a rivalry game. I know, too, the health of Baker kind of in question. He's been limited in practice, I know, especially after Monday and it being a short week. He was sort of hobbling a little bit. So we'll see if he's able to, run around like he's been able to and scramble that does concern me. I wonder if they will try to emphasize the run game. I know Todd Bowles mentioned in his press conference trying to get Sean Tucker involved more. Officer Richard's having to get more of the carries, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. Obviously, the Bucs running back room, much like their receivers, is pretty good, I think, and it's not bad. It's a good stable of running backs they have available to them, much like their receivers. So, with all that being said, again, I am concerned here a little bit, just a little bit. Again, it's a shortened week, back-to-back road stretch. It's a rivalry game too, so these divisional games are usually pretty close for the most part. I know a couple years ago, or was it last year? Yeah, last year. I know back when this was in New Orleans last year, it was a blowout. In the second half, it was like 51-27. Very, very strange type of game there. And tale of two halves, by the way. Just, yeah, I think that was after. Was that after Milne or Helene? It was after Milne, I believe. So, yeah, it was that Sunday after. But again, yes, the FanDuel line, according to FanDuel, is Tampa minus 4.5. Kind of makes sense to me, but yeah, that makes sense. I wasn't expecting it to be like anything above like 7. So I think that kind of makes sense. But everything I just said, again, even with injuries and stuff and it being a short week, I just don't think the Saints have an identity at all. Period. Even on their defense, like both defense and offense, no identity at all. Again, you're also dealing with a first-time head coach and a coach that's probably a one-term coach. I think Tampa should win, and I think they should cover. Though I will say again, because it's a rivalry. And again, they look Tampa and Saints fans. It's a very personal rivalry. Both of these cities are very similar to each other. Both of these organizations are very similar to each other as well historically. Again, it's very physical. It's been a physical game over the past few years. It's a very passionate rivalry. Again, it's Tampa's biggest rival. So I do understand there is a possibility. Again, because of the other dynamics too, with the back-to-back road games and it being a short in a week, this could be a little bit closer than even I am predicting it to be. But I do believe Tampa, at least in terms of their physicality, especially on their defense, they should be able to handle this Saints offense and the rat. I just don't have any faith in. If I were an alternate universe Saints fan, I would be really scared about this matchup. So, luckily I'm a Bucs fan. I'm not a Saints fan. So, picking Bucs to win here to. Picking the Bucs to win and cover, and that's the show. How about that? Got it on just under an hour. I guess since we're here, yes, I am watching the tropics, and yes, I'm keeping tabs on Tropical Storm Melissa, soon-to-be hurricane, and potentially a very destructive hurricane there in the western parts of the Atlantic. Now, in terms of impacts here, could it impact Florida? I don't think so because there's a front coming in. By the way, next week on Halloween, cold here. How about that? And look, as someone who likes Halloween, it's a good holiday. Well, it's not like it's not like a big holiday, but as a holiday. Look, I'm not obviously not old enough to trick or treat anymore, but how about that? 50s here, even some 40s here in northeastern Florida, southeastern Georgia. Just a chef's kiss. That's the Halloween I like. There's been Halloweens in the past to where it's just been hot and miserable, even when I was living in Alabama back in my youth. But so a front coming in, that's why it's gonna be so cold and like perfect weather for Halloween. So yeah, the front's coming in that should be able to carry the hurricane just off the East Coast. So we should be okay, but it's been close, man. It's been really close. So we're watching it, and look, if we do have to move shows around for some reason, I mean it's unlikely. We will, but even for next year too. And then so far, given what we're seeing in outlooks, by the way, going forward into like November, that's where the season ends, final month, it seems like we're good. This might be the last hurrah here for the hurricane season. We can stick a fork in it. We'll see you next year, and we'll do this all over again. But so far for this year for Florida, we've been lucky this year. We finally got a break, but that just means next year we'll get a bunch of landfall. So that's the show. So we're keeping on Hurricane Melissa at the moment. We should be okay here. So prayer hands. By the way, for the folks down there in the Caribbean, it's going to be. I'll just say this. I think a lot of folks' lives down there are going to change, probably forever. I don't say that lightly, but just based on the environment that storm's in, and not to mention it's moving very slowly. So I have opportunity to feed on those hot waters. There's no shear. There's no dry air around it. It should be able to flex his muscle. The storm system should be able to flex his muscles pretty quickly. So I'm very concerned for our friends down there. So again, prayer hands. Keep your thoughts of those folks down there. They're going to need it. But so yeah, that's it for the show. Of course, we'll be back on Sunday for the reaction recap for college football on Sunday, early Sunday morning, late Sunday, Saturday night. We'll record it. Of course, we'll have the show on Tuesday. Same schedule. I don't think we'll have to move anything around. I don't think it's like no evening shows for at least for the foreseeable future. But yeah. So until then, until Tuesday officially for the show, but until Saturday night, late Sunday or late Saturday night, early Sunday morning for the recap. Until then, enjoy the games. And if anything breaks in between then, of course, we'll do individual videos on the show, on the channel, if we have to. But until then, next time you see me, either late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, or Tuesday for the normal Tuesday show. Until then, take care, enjoy the games. We'll see you guys on the next stream.